Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My channel is called Discerning What is True. I'm broadcasting today live on Facebook, YouTube, and also on Odyssey. My talk today is the issue of trauma within all of us. And so I'm just going to, if there anybody wants to ask questions, they're welcome to ask questions. I don't know if I'll have the answers, but I've talked to some women, some friends of mine who are women. And I actually have also interviewed Janice Barcelo years ago. It should be still up on my YouTube channel, Discerning What is True, but it will be probably, some of what I call the beginning of my broadcasting, so to speak. If any of you do not know who she is, you need to look into her. The reason why you need to look into her is because there's enormous trauma that takes place in hospitals, and especially in the birthing room where they have children at. I would suggest, even though I'm not a man, I'm not a woman, I am a man, sorry, uh, but I would suggest that women have their children outside the hospital. Seriously. Either do it yourself, your husband being there, or have what I call a someone who can help you to be there with you, who knows what they're doing, understands it. I want to say birthing mother, but that's not what it's called. But anyway, so here's the deal. And again, like I said, I'm not an expert, but I want to talk about this because it's a critical issue in all of our lives. Um, Many men themselves have been traumatized in the hospital for years. Um, maybe 70 or 80 years, ever since the whole idea of circumcision that took place. And, you know, many people who are religious think that that's okay. No, it's not. No, it's not. It causes pain to a child, a baby boy. It also, they have been, I don't think it's as bad here in the United States, but still in the other countries it is, that there's circumcision also done with women. You don't, doctors don't have any business in that area, period. That's none of their business. They also, I know, make a cut on that circumcision situation with men, boys. So this introduces trauma to boys. The reason why simply is that boy is newly born, maybe a day or two old, and suddenly, maybe not even that old, is basically cut on their penis with no anesthetics, and they're strapped down, which tells you simply is that the child itself would be in agony and pain. Why would you do this to your children? Why would you do this to your boys, mothers? You need to educate yourself in order to not cause harm to baby boys. So many women who just simply didn't know, or I guess they didn't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's just it seems to be the thing to do here in America is to traumatize boys at a very young age, and to traumatize girls also. And so this introduces trauma into a child. It introduces trauma for the boy because where's my mom? Where's my mom to protect me here? Okay. And what I did, let me say something else. You stinking doctors out there that do this, you're pathetic to do something of this nature. Um, you not only benefit on what I call the the situation in the hospitals, and when at one time there was no such thing as a birth certificate, also, which is another way, that's another story, and I've talked about that years ago on my videos. This, if you want to look into that, you can look into that. But doctors don't have a fucking idea what they're doing. They really don't, because they're being trained. They're what I would call in it for the job, in it for the money. That's what they're there for. Do they really seriously think they love their job and what they do? And you're saying, well, Brant, you're being a little hard on these people. No, I'm not. I'm not. This is a travesty. This is supposed to be a Western, modern Western world country, but we're still doing things that, frankly, even pagans never did. So what it does is introduces what I figured it does, and is to do with the boy. It creates a separation with the boy and his mother in that particular trauma. And I think it also introduces what I would call a feedback or attitude later on in life that men tend to harm women for no reason sometimes. And I wonder if it has to do with the mother deal. And if there is any mothers here that want to talk about that, they're welcome to talk about it. Again, this is open. But a child is one of the things that most people are unaware of. There are two parts of you. There's the physical aspect of you, and there's the spiritual aspect of you. And we all came from God. We all came from God. We were spirits there. We wasn't bodies, we were spirits. And what's transponded to that, when we come here the first time or many times due to reincarnations, you know, so we actually think that it will be the same way that we came from. In other words, we have this perspective that we came from the fourth, the 4D, the 4D world, so to speak. That is, maybe you could say heaven. I don't know if you could call it that, but we are actually with God. That is with spirit, such and such. So there's a whole idea. Simply is there's love there. There's closeness there with others that are there because they're all spirits. So there's an expectation when you enter this particular realm that it would be the same way. And unfortunately, it's not. And so what happens simply is most of the trauma that takes place in families immensely. There is some trauma that also occurs outside of the family, but the intermediate family or family who are involved, little girls are fondled. They are treated. There's no business in doing this, period. You got to be sicko to do this. Men who do this to children. And so what transponds simply is there's a trauma that takes place with the children, all of us. And so this is where what we call the ego takes place eventually. And a lot of people poo-poo the whole idea of what we call ego. I'm not in that camp. And what I mean by that simply is that when you're under that situation and you are put into this situation, you have to somehow protect yourself as a child. And the only way a child can protect itself, especially if it does not have caring parents or loving parents who stand by them and love them, they create an ego. They create another person, another personality, so to speak, not another personality, but another person to, so to speak, to protect themselves in some way. And so that develops in them at a young age. And what happens is simply it continues on, and it's a personality, it's a facade. But the child did that because it was the only way it could actually protect itself, boy or girl. And so the sad part simply is that people are all out here, I hear it all the time, that they rival, they put down people who have ego, such and such, they're a maniac, such and such. Well, yeah, well, this is what our society does to children. It's introduced at a very young age. So reality is not their fault. So we need to get this fault deal out of the way. Because in reality, simply is that a child has got to protect itself. And if it doesn't have a good mother or a good dad, it has to defend for itself in some way. And I feel sorry for girls. It's a lot more than I do for boys, although the boys eventually can, in some way, can try to defend themselves. It's a different situation, a lot to do with a girl. So back to this whole situation with a ego is that part of this is, again, like I said, is manufactured because so many people are not aware when they even get married or when they have sex, or whatever. Uh, they just feel good, is such and such. They don't understand that there's a responsibility that takes place if you get pregnant, young ladies. And if you do, you better figure out what it's like to be in a hospital. And you need to understand that all kinds of drugs are put on you, I should say, and also to do damage to not only you but to your child. Even they do this stuff. I'm trying to think. I'm not a man. I mean, I'm not a husband. I never had been married, so to speak. So, but I got to say something about it. And so, what's taking place is simply is this: most men have no idea what's going on, and you need to find someone who's got a level head, or you need to talk to your family members or someone outside your family and ask questions. Simply is what really does take place in hospitals, and other things simply is that this whole cesarean deal here. Um, well, who created us? God. Okay, so God created a vagina, and this is where you have sex with a woman, and the whole idea here simply is that that's also where we call the birthing canal. When did it become a fashion to do what I call cesarean birth these days? Because you know what? There's enormous trauma that takes place with that baby also there, and also for the mother again. So the doctors are not actually calming the whole idea down, and they're not solving the problem. They're making it worse. They're not solving the problems. And it would be better to simply is people need to understand that there are also vaccines that are also involved in this. Not only with the mother, but also the child. And like I said, also with the whole idea of boys being circumcised and girls being also touched in certain ways that are not right neither. So a lot of things, what happens also with children, they 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 try to forget about it. They put it away. They put it away. They don't want to deal with it because it was something that was done to them. They don't understand why it happened to them. And rightly so, they don't know what's happened to them, why this happened to them, a little girl or a little boy. A society that does this has got to be sick in many, many ways. It reveals a lot about our society here. And the key is simply is that we need to go back to the past. We need to do things differently. And people say, "Oh, well, that's it's not a safe place, such and such." Really? It's not a safe place it's not a safe place to be in the hospital these days, neither. It's one of the worst places to be at in any way you can be at. Probably the emergency room is probably the best in some ways, but the rest of the area is complete. And I wouldn't even know if the emergency room is that great neither. But I've kind of jumped off a tangent here. So you need to educate yourself. And again, like I said, you need to look into this particular book. I think she's I think she's authored 3 or 4 different books. And it would be well worth your time to even investigate her and look into her. That is Janice Barcelo. And you can look back on a video that I've shared long ago, Discerning What Is True. Probably, I'm thinking probably 6 or 8 years ago. It'll be on my channel here, Discerning What Is True. It's probably one of the first videos I did. Was actually the first video I did live. Uh, so I don't want to make this video long, but I think this is now. So what happens simply is this with this situation with the trauma, it's acted out in children. Either I've talked to other people who have talked to me and said, well, you know, my son watched my husband try to strangle me, so to speak, as a mother. And the boy couldn't do anything to save his mother or help his mother, so to speak. Also to do with simply is that other things that take place that basically children see, and they're wondering what the heck is going on. And either mommy is afraid of daddy because he's threatening her. You know, the whole idea simply is if a man's threatening you, you need to leave. You need just to leave and take your children seriously. And the sad part simply is that it's hard to raise a family that is a child also as a single parent. But you need to have a good parent that does love that child, boy or girl, because it's important for their stability in their lives. And so, again, back to this whole thing, I want to share a couple things else up here. Let me get these books. I also suggest that you look into a gentleman named Michael J. Lincoln. This is where all the trauma basically comes through. It's all in the family. And this explores what I call an in-depth exploration of life scripts. In other words, what takes place with children. Some are, either are what I call goody two shoes. Some are what he calls a Keystone Kid. Others are the black sheeps of the family. One is what we call a model child. One is considered what he calls fog bound. One and only heir, that would probably think is the only child, how they're treated. You have what he calls here three main branches of the tree here of the folk, in the family here, meaning what's in it for me. So this would be the urban hermit. You have a rebellious child. You have what they call an ugly duckling. You have what they call a mom addict, and another one he has called here apple tree. The other one simply is keep them around the old house, the homestead, meaning simply is that you somehow manipulate that child so that they're always around. So when you get older, you quote unquote are not allowed to live your own life, so to speak. You see. So what's happening simply is that one and only heir is one of those. The goody two shoes is another one, and the other one's simply called the family dog. And then the last piece here is dealing with what I would call the crutch child. That is the black sheep, the model child, the justice hound, and the fog bound. And it's critical that you begin to search these things out. This guy has written, I think, 12 or 15 books. This is a hardback. And then there's another book he's written. He's written many books, okay? So I don't have all his books. And then other ones simply doing what I call our personal challenges. That is the problematic patterns in these times. What we call they're programmed to be incompetent. They're addicted and codependent. Children are. Oh, hello, Brad. How are you doing? Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Controlled avoidance. So the child is controlled and avoidance back and forth. He doesn't know what's going on. They have multiple personalities, alone and alien and alienated. Um, the lone Murano, and then he talks about simply dealing with what we call healing the shadow, into what we call the child. And so this is just a couple of books that he's written. You can go to his site. His site is called what's it called here? Let me get it here real quick for you. It's called www.talkinghearts.net. And if you want to call them, there's a phone number here called 916-420-0904. If you want to talk to someone there and explain, what book would be best, that type of thing, to the office there. I've actually conversed with these people to look into things, and even in my own self. So it's just important that I think what's so sad is that most children don't know what's happened to them. I think that they really don't know what's happening in all of them. And so what's happening simply is that they don't know where to go. And if they come from a broken home or somehow the family's broken up, there's also issues, economic issues. I know that I've had a couple of people tell me that simply is that um, basically what happens simply is a mother has lost her job and loses the home and has no one. Okay. And the whole idea simply is that the child doesn't understand why they're struggling when in the past they had a perfect life, a perfect, so to speak, childhood. So the rug was pulled up from under them, so to speak, for the boy or girl. And so it's critical that people understand what is going on. And a lot of it starts again, like I said, in with the hospitals, the medical system. One thing is also to do with simply, I say this, another thing is also critical for people to understand. And these are all these things that women need to know this, and they need to tell their man this too. Okay. No, I'm not going to have a child in the hospital, honey. Okay. I want this to be a child that is not traumatized or in a way that actually causes harm to this boy or girl here. But you do know that doctors give drugs to actually prevent childbirth to a certain time. You're aware of that, aren't you? You do know that simply is they schedule it some way for this mother, and instead of her being in her, what I would call, in her normal phase of actually going to have a child, somehow they use drugs in order to prevent that to a certain time space to allow them to do whatever they want to do. The medical system. That is the doctors again. The doctors are not even there, neither, folks. They treat people as though they're rag dolls, that is, women. The other thing simply is critical for people to understand here is to go back and understand simply is the older way simply is also having a child, especially a mother, was let gravity do the deal. Okay. So when you're expecting to have a child, and that's again, the whole thing with having a child in the pool is another similar situation. After all, the children, all of us are over 80% water, if not more. So it's conducive because your mother is actually got water within herself protecting the child also. And when she breaks her water, so to speak. So my point here is that you need to educate yourself. And I'm just pointing out some books here to basically educate you. And it's up to you. Now, it doesn't mean that you can do all the things you can prevent to have trauma also. And I understand this because but one of the worst places to do this simply is the hospital. Okay. And we think this simply, this is really a crutch about it simply is we think that modern means advance or progress. But look around you, folks. Look around you. For example, I could give you an illustration here real quick. In the name of progress, we cut down trees. That's right. We cut down trees in a neighborhood. Before we build a development and a housing deal, we cut the trees down, all of them, every one of them. Why? Why is that? Well, we don't want to. We want to get as much land or whatever, such and such. Really? So your whole motive is to make money here, right? Well, that's the wrong motive. Okay. If you go back to here where I live at, there are homes that were built with. You can just drive in this neighborhood. This used to be done, and you can go to even places in North Carolina I've been in that you have oak trees all over the place. They don't cut them all down because there's beauty with trees within the housing subdivisions or housing place. So the whole idea here is simply is we've gone away from everything that actually is beneficial for ourselves here. We think that we're progressing and we're actually not progressing at all. And so what takes place is that, yeah, good to see you, Brad. Thanks for being here. You're welcome to ask a question if you want to. Yeah, thank you for, yes, thank you. Thank you. Um, Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here. I think gave you the message today. I don't know if you got it, but our hopes is that I will be interviewing Phil Langdon this Thursday, but I'll find out probably tomorrow night, or not tomorrow night, but sometime tomorrow. So we'll make sure of that. So it'll be the regular time, if you know what I'm talking about, Brad. And we'll probably be dealing some issues that different things. So thank you. So a conclusion of what I'm sharing with you today is that I think it's critical for us to educate ourselves, and understanding simply is that if we're married, there's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of responsibility in being a mom and a dad. If you don't want to have children, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, in fact, maybe it's best you don't have them if you're not prepared to take the responsibility. Yeah, I'm not saying anything against marriage or living together. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying simply is if you're not capable or basically don't feel like you're responsible enough to have children, maybe it's best you don't have them. So, you should talk to him about the hepatitis of the one. Okay. It's very Gnostic oriented. Okay. Well, I think we're going to talk about some things. We haven't talked in a while. Since December, we've only had one meeting. I've got some questions I plan to ask. Actually, it's going to be pertaining to what I call some things to do with what I call what I'm talking about today, but it's also going to be pertaining to um, the whole idea of what we call forgiveness. Also, we're going to talk about that, and that also going to talk about something we talked about maybe a little bit briefly, the issue of karma and why people think it's karma, because I don't know if it's completely karma itself. So, okay, thank you, Brad. So, anyway, the whole idea, and maybe it'd be best that if you don't have children, and maybe it would be good okay to maybe adopt a child or two, if that's a possibility. I know that simply it might be a little less, it might be more. I don't know. I've never been married, but the point simply is that a lot of times both partners are not aware of what they're getting themselves in. In fact, I know my parents didn't know what they were doing. No. My mother quit school at, I think it was the 10th grade, and thought that this was going to be I don't think this, not a dream, but in some ways, the perspective is that she thought everything would work out, that he was going to be a perfect husband, or so to speak. And so, in reality, simply is the whole point here is that if you're not ready for marriage, maybe it's best you don't get married. Maybe it's best you be a single person. Maybe you can wait for some years instead of quote unquote in your early 20s or whatever, or getting together, living together. Maybe wait later. See if you can become responsible, especially you men, to be responsible in how to handle certain things in the house and how to handle your work situation and how to not be dependent upon drugs or alcohol in your life, you see, because that means simply is that you haven't dealt with your traumas. You see, those are two major signs that basically you have not you have not dealt with your traumas and you're covering them up and you're not trying to solve that. You're just covering it. So anyway, I just wanted to share this with other people out here, and thank you, Brad, for being here, and others. Thank you. And maybe we can sometime we'll do more of this sometime. I haven't talked to Janice in a long time. Maybe sometimes maybe we can meet with her in the future. But I don't see how to say this. I don't see until people really experience this type of thing in their lives, are we going to simply grow up? And I think a lot of it simply is that we're all somewhat spoiled in our society also. And we are expecting to have things our way. And we are not, again, like I said, we're not grown up. And like I say again, like I'm going to say one more time, is that simply if you're not able to do this, best thing to do is not to have children. It would be better that you don't even have children, you see. So thank you for being here. Again, I just wanted to make a short video. It's just roughly now 30 minutes here. So thank you. And if there's others out here that have interest, we will be meeting hopefully Thursday with Phil Langdon and some issues that we want to talk about also. But thank you for being here, and hope that this will stimulate you to look into deeper things. Okay? Take care. Have a good evening.